Joe, one of the biggest games of week one is going to be the Miami Hurricanes versus the Florida Gators in the Swamp. A lot has been made of Miami this season, mainly due to the fact that a lot of people have put them in their playoff predictions. They get a guy like Cam Ward in. They have a very underrated wide receiver core with Restrepo and George. They bring in guys like Damian Martinez, Ruben Baines along that defensive line, and you add a really good Big Ten defensive tackle in Simeon Barrow. When you look at this game, my friend, in week one, how do you see Miami and Florida playing out?
First of all, one thing that I'm really focusing on, and I think what is going to be super important for the outcome of this, is specifically how quickly does Cam Ward hit the ground running? How quickly does he gel with the offense? How quickly is he able to generate splash plays and connect with his receivers? Because we just watched, understandably, a much weaker quarterback in DJU. We just watched a transfer quarterback in a new situation struggle mightily in his first game with his new team. I don't think that Cam Ward is going to have the same types of issues that DJU did, because DJU's struggles were a lack of aggressiveness and willingness.
Is who he is, though.
Yeah, a lack of a willingness to take risks, and Cam Ward is the polar opposite of this. If he doesn't turn the ball over and he has a clean game and he connects on a couple of deep balls, that is going to be really big for Miami's production. The other part of this, though, that I think is really important to know, Florida's offensive line is better than I think people realize. I think, again, yes, Florida has just been dropped down as this weak team that's going to get completely knocked over by whoever they play. Their O-line, Austin Barber, it's a pretty good group. And there's 3 new starters for Miami's defensive line. So they need to come firing off the ball as to not allow to happen to them what Florida State had go down for them with new faces on their defensive line against Georgia Tech.
I think you hit the nail on the hammer when you said, how quickly does Cam Ward gel with his new team? And I think we got a really interesting example of that in week 0 with DJU. Here's the question that I would possess to most people. Has Cam Ward played in an environment like this in week 1 with a brand new football team?
Great point.
Okay.
Great point.
And we're talking about turnovers, and we're talking about them gelling early. The issue with that is, Joe, what if they come out and just run the ball with Damian Martinez with a really good offensive line and are able to open some things up with Cam Ward? So it's not like that they don't have options. But it is going to be a very interesting chess match when it comes to Florida because of how loud that stadium is going to be in a rivalry game in week 1 with a brand new team. Now, that's not to say that they can't come out firing off on all cylinders. A lot of us think that they're going to be a very talented team. But I want to look at the other side of the offense, or the other side of the ball when it comes to Graham Mertz and Florida. Joe, what if he progresses? Because here's the thing that I kept thinking about in this game too. We all thought going into the season last year that he might be one of the worst quarterbacks in the SEC. That's how people projected him.
That wasn't true, yeah.
And that wasn't true. What happened was my man threw 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He was highly accurate. Now, he was dumping the ball off, and I'm not saying he wasn't taking deep shots. Joe, what if he comes out in this game and finds Eugene Wilson, Trey Wilson, and they're able to hit on some big shots with the running game that we know that they can possess? I think that this game is going to be so much closer than people are giving it credit for, mainly due to where it's being played. And I do think that Billy and this offensive staff does not get the credit that they deserve on the leap that Graham Mertz took a year ago. Joe, what if he does take a bigger leap in a second year of an offense? You also really well illustrated about Florida. We look at Florida and say, oh man, they're going to be 5-7. Well, we're saying that because we're logo watching and saying, man,
they also have an insane schedule.
They have an insane schedule. Okay, well, you 1,000% sure you're going to pick Florida State over Florida when we get there? I don't know. I don't know anymore.
It's true.
So now we already have a game out of the way. I legitimately look at Florida and say, what does Billy do that could give Miami problems? He loves holding on to the football. Joe, they were top 10 units back-to-back years in time of possession. Mm-hmm. They want to hold on and run the football. Take small throws, get first downs, be progressive and methodical down the field. However, I just don't know if they have enough to overcome when the game gets late. I just think that there's way too much talent on Miami right now, and I still don't. I get what people say about Mario and, hey, Cristobal, you know, he has some very bad lapses. I get that. I understand that. But the talent that they possess on both lines of scrimmage, Joe, is where I just can't give that edge to Florida because of how good Miami is on both sides. Now, the thing that I think is really interesting in this game, Montrell Wilson has been a little nicked up with injuries.
Montrell Johnson,
excuse me.
Yep.
Montrell Johnson has been a little nicked up with injuries.
He had a knee procedure, so I don't know if he's even available. There's been no update on that.
Correct. Joe, against a really good defensive line. So that makes me a little skittish when I look at Florida. But, man, you know that I love this analogy, and I'm going to use it again here. Billy Napier came out today, and it was one of the press conferences that I watched. They are the pit bull that's in the corner. Everybody has been poo-pooing on them all offseason, right? They're going to go 5-7. Billy Napier's on the hot seat. Joe, what if they come out and show that they've actually got a process and that it's working? I think Miami is going to win this game, but, Joe, I can't give them more than a field goal. I really can't, because here's another thing, too. I've seen them play in that stadium against really good opponents with Billy Napier, and that game's a lot closer than people want to let on. I just think that the talent in the late in the third quarter and into the fourth, the talent that Miami possesses is going to overwhelm them, and that's why they're going to come out with a win.
The line right now is set at 2.5 for Miami. I think that Miami covers. I think that they
would be a 3.5. Would be a 6.5 if it were a neutral site, just for people that get that right.
I think that they're going to win by more than a touchdown. I'm not of the belief or at all going to be in the camp that this game ends up being super lopsided for where it's being played, for it being a rivalry. I mean, I remember the last time that these two teams played. I want to say that was 2019, unless I'm misremembering. This game can get pretty crazy when they face off with one another. But it's been brought up in our comments too, that we talked about with Florida State, and then people have been saying that, like, well, why are you guys so high on Miami, who's also like a portal-heavy team? I think that there's just a difference in the types of guys that were brought in.
Yeah, it's called quarterback.
Yeah, a quarterback that they're just so much more explosive. Everything that you talk about Billy Napier is true. I think that they're going to want to come into this game trying to prove that they don't deserve the criticism that they've been getting. But at the same time, Mario Cristobal needs this game as a momentum builder. Like, he really needs this game to help them hit the
Cristobal or Napier.
Cristobal Napier needs it so he doesn't get fired. Mario Cristobal needs it so that he can get everybody to shut up and stop doubting him for being a bad in-game coach. I think that Cristobal is going to have his guys motivated and ready to go. I look at the way that they played against Texas A&M last year maybe as a good example, where going up against, and that was at home, but going up against a team with a coach on the hot seat, no one's expecting you to win. Everyone's thinking you're going to get trounced, and coming out firing on all cylinders, being nearly perfect on offense and putting a ton of points up on the board. That was an infamous game for us because I predicted it so poorly. I really think that Cam Ward, though, is going to get into a rhythm in the second half, and they're going to win this game by about a touchdown, maybe a little bit more.
I think the biggest mismatch in this game is the wide receiver unit at Miami versus the DB room at Florida.
Yep.
People forget about Jacoby George. They forget about Estrepo when we talk about because of Cam Ward and Damian Martinez.
Sam Brown, too. Sam Brown's the best of the three of them. He's the best receiver of all three of them. No, I'm telling you right now, he's going to put up the most production. I broke down his film. That kid is a potential first-rounder.
I can't go there.
Unbelievably good. I was in love with him.
Had 1,000 yards with Tyler Van Dyke as his quarterback.
Jacoby George is a great player. I'm not down that, but okay. Sam Brown had Donovan Smith, who was airmailing him passes like every other throw that was coming his way. So
I think that is the biggest mismatch. Now let me reverse the roles and ask you, does Florida have a mismatch that big in this game? Because I don't think there's one. And I'm going to tell you this too. You know what really worries me in this game? We're talking a lot about Cam Ward. Cam Ward actually worries me in this game because I don't know what I'm going to get. And let me say this too, Joe. Cam Ward turned the football over a lot. All right. I mean, 8 turnovers, 5 fumbles. That's a lot. That's a turnover a game. All right. And when you do that in critical situations, momentum in games like this is a massive deal. Very massive deal. So, look, we've seen transfer portal quarterbacks come in. You know, like Jalen Hurts is the obvious one that can come in year one and lead a team to a playoff. I just don't know how I feel about this one. Now, I'm going to pick Miami. I'm with you. I think it's within a 3 to 7 point game here. But let me ask you this. If that game is close and Miami is the team that we think that we are, is Florida going to go 8-4? Joe, if it's a 3-point loss to Miami and we're projecting them to win the ACC, now what?
Man, that schedule is so hard though. Like for them to be
upset somebody. Like, let me give an example.
I was the one who even said this in the Florida preview that we did. I even said that they could upset teams that nobody's thinking that they can beat.
LSU, Texas, Florida State. I mean, there are legitimate. It's just very legitimate that they could do it. So,
I don't. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to jump right in and say though that if they keep this game close, that's an indicator that they could go 8-4 because they could totally lay an egg.
I think it builds momentum for them.
It does, but they could also totally go on to lay multiple eggs on the rest of their schedule and get overwhelmed. I mean, great example is that they knocked Tennessee around and they beat them pretty handedly. And Tennessee was a ranked team for most of last year.
Tennessee.
That's not the point. The point is the point is though is that wasn't enough of a momentum builder for them. They still ended up struggling in a lot of their other games. I mean, the LSU game was embarrassing how badly they got smoked by them.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels. Oh,
yeah.
Christ. He just ran in for another touchdown.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.